Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Victory Leaders Lounge. Today, I have a wonderful guest here. We had a conversation the other day, and we're like two peas in a pod. I think we could have had a 4-hour conversation, but today she's a guest for this live stream. Her name is Jacqueline, but I'll let her introduce herself. Go ahead, Jacqueline. Introduce yourself to the audience.
I am Jacqueline Wales, and I'm the founder of Transformational Strategies for Success, author of The Fearless Factor at Work, and a novel called When the Crow Sings, and a TEDx speaker on Unleash the Power of Fear, the secret to success and happiness.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit more about that.
Terrific. So I'm often asked, why fear? What's your interest in fear? And a lot of it came out of, like many people in this world, a dysfunctional background where there was a tremendous amount of violence and alcoholism and general diminishment of the people in the family. Mm-hmm. So I was definitely subject to that. And of course, it led me to a lot of self-sabotaging behaviors, drug and alcohol addiction, unwanted children. The story went on for quite a while until finally I wised up and realized that I needed to clean up my act. I needed to get myself together, mostly because of my children, because I got 4 of them. And each one of them has a different story about me as a mother. But it was really about, I had to make myself better for my children's sake. But that was a lot of fear involved in this, a lot of sense of not being good enough, not worthy, not deserving, and not really showing up fully in who I am and what I'm capable of. And it took a few decades for me to finally figure that one out. And eventually it led me to doing the work that I'm doing now, which is working with my executive clients and others on helping them with their self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and their ability to take on better management and leadership roles. So that's kind of it in a big nutshell, but there's a whole lot of story back there.
Well, we all have a backstory, and mine is similar. And I think that's why you and I got along so well and still continue to get along so well. But, it's amazing how the narrative that we have as children continues with us as adults, especially when it's a negative one. And for some reason, it just gets us to believe these stories about ourselves that just are not true. And we end up going down paths of destruction, and not just to us, but to other people around us. And it's not healthy and it's not good. And, until I had a similar thing happen where I was in the military, and it wasn't until I was surrounded with wonderful people that I started to believe that I could even accomplish more than waking up in the morning. So what a wonderful background. I mean, so you decided to work with executive clients. What kind of led you to that specifically?
Well, I had worked with a lot of independent people along the way, and specifically I started out working with women, high-achieving women. And high-achieving women, women in general, have a lot of self-doubt. They don't speak up. They don't step into the places where they could have a bigger voice. They don't take ownership and authority of their roles. So that was really the beginning stage of where I started. And of course, Logan, as being fearless, it's not the absence of fear, but it's the courage to take the next step. So helping these women to understand how fear is operating in their world, which is primarily the stories we tell ourselves. It's the narrative in our heads, and rarely has any empirical evidence to go along with it. So I, wanted to address that. And eventually I started working with companies, and I started seeing that a lot of the issues, the behavioral and thinking issues, they're not for any specific category of person. They're universal.
Yes, they are.
And, it doesn't matter whether you're a CEO of a large company or you're a direct report who's just getting started. There's the same issues. The insecurity of self is really what we're looking at a lot of the time, and being able to get beyond that is really the big key. So the work that I've been doing for the last 18 years particularly has really been about not only my own evolution, but in helping my clients specifically to understand why they think how they think, what they do that matters to them, and how they can start to think about and do things differently. And that really is the kind of nexus of everything. Is that if you want to be a high performer, you've got to be able to start taking a look at yourself first of all, because I think the biggest mistake that's out there is that many people assume that if you're put into leadership, and you're all about leadership, so you know this, if you're put into leadership, you know what it is to deal with people. Not true. 9 times out of 10, you've got to be trained into it. And that is all about, first of all, recognize who you are, know what matters to you, know what gets in the way of you becoming and being truly spectacular in yourself. But you know, this is a bigger piece that takes time and effort, needs support, and most companies don't give that to their employees. They're left to kind of wallow in it. So we have performance and retention problems. Why? Because they feel like nobody cares.
Yeah.
And that's a big one right there. So that's why I'm particularly interested in this idea. I mean, you talk about it, I talk about it, servant leadership. You know, it's like, how can we be of service to others? And I would say that this has become my way of giving service. In fact, it's my passion at this point.
Yeah.
I wanted to change the world one person at a time, because when you help one person, they go on to help 10 more. And that's the equation. And it's not complicated, except it means that people have to have the courage to show up and make the commitment to themselves. Now, you've been in the military, you know what that looks like in terms of making that commitment to not only yourself, but to your team, to the organization that you serve. But unless there's some kind of understanding that the organization cares for you, is concerned about your well-being, and gives you the tools, skills, insights necessary to be the best you can be. If we want to talk about Army parlance here, you know, that's frequently the missing piece. And my job is to help people get that kind of support.
Oh, you know, it's so important to take the approach that you do. You know, people seem to think that the environments that they're in can't be improved. And they tend to have all of that self-doubt in their system, and so they look at trying to improve these numbers by driving more performance and just getting out a bigger hammer. But what they don't understand is that they're the ones who can do it just by going out and talking to people, creating an environment where you get to know everybody there, and you know, asking questions and doing all those wonderful things, but starting with themselves. And if you don't have the confidence to do that, because you're scared of, you know, what other people might think about the things that you're saying, or whatever the case may be, you know, it's the same concept as when you go onto an airplane, when they're giving you that safety brief, and they teach you about the little bag that drops from the ceiling. You know, make sure you don your mask before you help somebody else, because if you're not straight with yourself, there's no way you can properly lead another human being, because it takes confidence and it takes wherewithal. So what a wonderful way to approach this.
Well, you know, it was interesting. This morning, there was an article in Gallup, and they talked about 42% of the population who are quitting simply because they didn't get any support from their managers.
Yep.
Managers never bother to check in to see, how are you doing? What do you need? Give me some feedback on the quality of what I'm delivering on. And even as they exit, they didn't sit them down to say, why are you leaving? What could we have done differently? It is simply about, yeah, well, there's the door. I'll see you later.
Yep.
And of course, what they don't understand also is that it ruins your brand. So somebody leaves because they didn't feel like anybody cared, or it was a toxic workplace. You're going to badmouth that company and tell people not to go there because it's not worth it. So the value of paying attention and actually investing in people development is far beyond anything that your market share can give you, frankly. And let's face it, most companies, most of their money's going on payroll. Yep. So, you know, you want a return on your investment?
Yeah. Invest into your people for sure. Yeah. Well, and you know what? The safe space. I just did a live stream in my Facebook group about that, and it was revolving around toxic leadership. And that there are statistics on the APA website, the American Psychology Association website, that support the same thing. People do not leave businesses, they leave their managers.
Yeah.
And they leave their managers because there's an environment there where they don't feel emotionally safe.
And here's the problem, that the managers themselves have never been given the training
Correct.
and insights necessary to do it properly. It's one of the reasons why I got 4 programs. It's dealing with trust, it's dealing with communication, it's dealing with self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and the anxiety and stress that's created when you don't have a whole lot of that in place. And these are fundamental issues that many companies need to start giving their employees.
Yes. And you know what? I think you're advertising for yourself and you're advertising for me too, because I have that wonderful program for new managers. And you're right. If you start when they're impressionable in the military, we would always talk to each other when we would go to the range. And then we would go out and we would brief the soldiers and we would say, if you're a first-time shooter, you're going to be a lot better than somebody who grew up hunting and doing all that stuff, because you're new to the weapon and you're going to use it the way we taught you. Well, if somebody's been a manager for a lot of years, they're less likely to change their habits. But if you get those new supervisors and those new managers and you train them in servant leadership, those ideals are going to stick in their head for the rest of their career.
No question. And if you think about it, I mean, my youngest client is 24 years old, and the majority of them are millennials, and they are hungry for this kind of leadership. They're hungry for people to be able to tell them exactly what it is I need to do in order for my career to have any substance to it. And then what they learn now at a younger age, they're going to be taking as they mature into their roles. And that then becomes a much different viewpoint. I mean, I'm a baby boomer. We knew not, certainly for me, I knew nothing about nothing back when.
We all start off that way.
I didn't want to learn either.
No, we just wanted to go out and party and have fun and do all those great things.
I did a lot of that. But, after you wise up a little bit, you're like, yeah, I guess this is, fundamental skills here. We need to learn it. But these young folks are definitely, they're interested and they're engaged, they're committed. And it's wonderful. I have to say, I love watching my clients just,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, so just a couple of hours ago, my daughter's friend, my daughter's 17, but her friend was 18. He was over here helping me with my truck doing some exhaust work. And we got into a conversation about leadership, actually, because he walked in while I was shooting another one of my podcasts. And he's like, I use a lot of those same ideals in my online gaming community. And I have teams and stuff that I've built out on Grand Theft Auto and all of these other things. And my eyes lit up. I was like, oh my gosh, I have an in. And I just started talking to this kid and he was a sponge. It was just so wonderful. Young and impressionable is definitely the time where you want to instill all these values and skills, because when they grow, now they're growing with these values. I already said it, but it was so wonderful to know that somebody who was young and interested in going camping this weekend and trying to make a quick buck out here helping me and all that other stuff is so interested in the stuff that I'm doing already. It almost makes me think, am I focusing on the right market? I mean, this guy is great. I want people to be interested in this stuff.
Well, they're not all made of the same mold, but I would definitely say there is a piece here. And I think it is exciting. And I think, if we'd had people in our lives, certainly I can speak for myself. I've had a lot of people in my life who said, don't go that way, go this way. And I've done that, followed directions. But the kind of materials and insights that we offer our clients now, young as they are, I wasn't ready for it when I was younger. I definitely could not have seen the value of it. But if, the younger self knew half of what she knows now, that would be a very different story. And it would have been a different life. I heard something the other day there, and I might have shared this with you earlier, but I'll share it again. A good friend of mine, I haven't spoken to in a long time, he said during our conversation, he said, you know, we're given an assignment when we come into this world. And we don't know what that assignment is until we are challenged and we're put through the ringer with regards to what we're learning. And then it becomes clear what it was you were put here to do. What is your purpose? And I think that's a big one, because when you ask people, what's your purpose? I have no idea.
Gosh, even now, right? Oh,
right. Well, now I do, but at the same time, looking at it from the assignment point of view is like, well, geez, I really had to be put through the ringer in order for me to get the lessons that I learned. But the value of those lessons learned is now being applied to a younger generation.
Yeah.
And I, in some ways, I feel like the wise old woman. I'm not, what can I say?
Gosh.
I've had a lot of decades under my belt so far.
We like the wise side, but we don't like the part that comes before that, where they say you're something and wiser.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
But the point being is, we do come into the world and we learn the stuff we need to learn. And at some point we learn how to give it back.
Yes.
And be of service. And that's really the big piece for me specifically, is that, I'll go to a company and I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here simply to ask you, what do you need? Do you recognize what you need? And if you can, then maybe I've got something that might help you out. And I'm pretty sure you do the same thing, because it's about being of service. It's servant leadership at its highest and best form.
It is. And, I'll take it one step further. Whether it's doing it as a business or you're working in a company, your goal as you obtain more and more knowledge, our basic purpose on this earth is to prepare the other people to do the things that we're doing. And I think a lot of businesses fall short of that. They're so worried about preserving their security in their own position that they forget that they're not going to be around forever. And I don't even know if they care sometimes, but some people, they're just so caught up in it that they forget, well, now there's this young generation that if we can teach, coach, and mentor them on what it takes to be successful, whether it's our role or somebody else's role or whatever the case may be, they need to learn these things so that when we start fizzling off and maybe we're sitting on a beach somewhere, or maybe we're buried 6 feet under, or whatever the case may be, that our country can still run.
Well, here's the missing piece for a lot of people who are in power or who have that seniority, shall we say. Humility.
Yeah, they don't practice it.
Is missing. You find a lot of them, they're very arrogant, their egos are running the show, and humility is missing. And along with humility is respect. And I think those two right there, no matter who you are, what you're doing, what your status is in the world, we need that. We need humility and respect in order for us to be decent human beings, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and then it kind of goes full circle though, too, right? Because then we're talking about the stuff that we've dealt with in our life. Well, what if we're going through a divorce? What if we had a tough childhood, or maybe we just got out of a really bad marriage? Or what if our pride is hurt for whatever reason? And now we have to go in, and though we may have done something really well at one time, now our mindset has shifted for one reason or another, and we have to embrace that. And we have to, it's a social responsibility also for us to make sure that when we have a peer or a senior who has all of a sudden changed, now what are we going to do about that? So often we complain about our environment, but we don't look at what we can do to better serve somebody else who's fallen short because of one reason or another. And we got to focus on that. When you're in a business, it's a group of people that come together to do a job. So it's a social responsibility to make sure we're serving each other. And
that's the conscious capitalism piece. That's where we are all in this together, and we are all choosing. I mean, the company I work for right now, she's very much about conscious capitalism, and is heavily invested in her employees, because she understands the value of it. And I think that's another big piece of it right there. There was something else that came to mind as I was listening to you earlier. It seems to have slipped through the old brain. I can't remember what it was, but never mind.
That's
We'll come
okay.
back around to it.
Yeah, we'll come back around to it. So what are some strategies that you deal with on it? I know you talked about 4 subjects that you teach, but what are some strategies when people are dealing with this fear of failure or defectiveness schema, or that they're not good enough, or whatever the case, what are some strategies you use to help these people?
So fear of failure comes up a lot. I hear this when I say to people, what's your greatest fear? The fear of failure. Okay. How many times have you failed in your life? Yeah, a lot.
Yes.
You know, how many times have you picked yourself back up again after you failed? A lot. In terms of creating 2 columns, failures column, success column, which one is longer? I'll guarantee you it's the success one, because you've had more success than failures in your lifetime. But the fear, the absolute paralysis of fear of failure, is based on very simple metrics here. Failure is simply a choice, a decision, or an expectation that did not go the way you had planned, period. So what's the next thing? Next. What do I do next? You take a different approach. What did I learn? You know, if you're going to repeat the same stuff over and over again, well, then God help you. That's all.
Well, but don't people get addicted to the depression and everything that goes along with that? And it's hard to get out of that.
Well, here's the thing about that, is that you get into that loop of, I'm depressed, life is too hard, I'm a victim of circumstances. People will feel sorry for me. People will want to rush in and help me, so they will become enablers of my condition. And that's a lot of where a lot of people choose to reside, which is a victim mentality.
Yeah.
You and I definitely don't subscribe to it, and I probably never have. You know, the poor me scenario, we've had moments when you go, poor me, what did I do to deserve this? I used to ask that a lot when I was a kid, sitting in my room like, what did I do to deserve this, God?
That paycheck to paycheck living will cause that.
Yes. But then you get to choose. You get to choose a different way. And that's one of the things that I say to people. You get to choose. And if you tell me you don't have a choice, you just made a choice. So keep that in mind. But the choosing piece is really about, where do you want to go? But here's the other thing that I tell people when they get all wrapped up in the future's going to be this and it's going to be that and it's all going to be a big mess, blah, blah, blah. Very simple philosophy. For today, I have a roof over my head, food on the table, gas in the car. I have 9 necessities. Is there anything else I need for today? The answer usually is no. I'm fine. What is changing here is my mental state. Because if I can stay present, if I can stay in today, knowing that I'm taking action for tomorrow, then tomorrow becomes another for today. So again, each day life is incremental. Change is incremental.
Yes.
And you can't be thinking about, the big change. No. Yeah. I can think about a tiny little thing I can do today that would make a difference. What 1% of what I'm doing today will make a difference for tomorrow? And your military background will tell you that also. It's yes, you constantly about, how can I improve tomorrow what I did today?
Correct.
And even if it's just that little bit of self-esteem piece that creeps in, it's like, you did a good job. You can look in the mirror and look at yourself and go, I really like you. I think you're pretty damn good. And that's an exercise. I mean, I had to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
That loving
affirmations are important.
piece is a very, very important piece, because the loving yourself means that you're willing to help yourself to grow, to develop, to discover what peace of mind really looks like, without the yada yada radio playing all the time on the wrong channel, and that's a big one right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming up on the end here. Do you have any closing comments or maybe a promotion or anything that you would like to share with my audience?
Well, you can definitely go watch my TED Talk on unleashing the power of fear. And if you have any thoughts on that, I'm always open to hearing about them, some comments. I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, just reach out if there's anything specific that you need. I've certainly got some answers. And books are out there on Amazon. You can check those out as well. So yeah, there's lots of ways you can get to me. So feel free.
Well, and if you see this video on LinkedIn, she is tagged on this, and she's also a co-host on there, so she will see any comments that you put on there. Feel free to reach out to her that way. But what a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for being a guest. And everyone who's in the audience, thank you so much for watching, whether it's now or later or whenever. So like the video if you appreciated what we said today. Subscribe if you're on my YouTube channel, but keep the conversation going and put a comment below so that we can address these stigmas and stuff that are going on and have great chats about it. This was another episode of Victory Leaders Lounge. Everybody have a good day.
Thank you.